to share with y'all a little bit about cocktails and conversation, and also just a little bit about me and who I am, what I do, and why I'm involved with cocktails and conversations. So my why is this beautiful little girl, and I know it's cliche, right, to say that like my kids are my why, but honestly, I wasn't ever one of those girls that was like, I want to have kids, right? She came into our lives, and we named her Ruth Bailey Grimm's intentionally with the initials RBG. We have big plans for her, and she's really forced me to become the best version of myself because I want her to be amazing. And I'm sure those of you who are parents can understand and relate to that. So I want to start by just sharing that she's my why. Also, I'm from St. Thomas, and my husband is white, and it's important to me that she knows that she's Caribbean and she understands our Caribbean heritage and our Caribbean roots. So this is me as a kid. My dad is from Trinidad and my mom is from Antigua. A lot of people know my dad. He was an EMT. Homer is his last name. Homer is the name my mom goes by as well. She's still a practicing nurse at Schneider Regional Medical Hospital. And this year she was actually awarded Nurse of the Year.
Oh, okay.
And I share that because I come from two parents who I always saw working really hard. And also my dad parties hard too. So I come from a cool family because my dad is a jokester. Everybody who knows him knows he knows where every mango tree is on island. He'll climb people's trees. He knows where all the fruits are. But I share this picture of me to show that from a young age I was kind of traveling, right? So this is me in an airplane, visiting family in Antigua, visiting family in New York. And being a Virgin Islander with immigrant parents is an interesting identity to have, which some of you might relate to. And that we don't have generations and generations of history here. My aunt was a big influence on me. She had several different businesses, so she was an entrepreneur. And this is a shot from a store that she had in Antigua. She also had a store in New York. This is me in the store as a young girl. And at one point she had like a leather store in Buccaneer Mall here in St. Thomas too. And I share this to say that I've always been an active person. I was helping her with payroll, I was helping her do inventory, I was doing sales, I was behind the counter helping her out as a kid. And so I've always been an active and high performing person. This shot is a bit about my time in high school. So this was me in Interact. I was the Interact president of my high school. I went to All Saints. So up till 6th grade, I went to public school. I was at Kerwin Terrace, and my mom transitioned me to All Saints, which was a difficult transition, moving from public school to private school. And really being involved in service, being involved in clubs was my way of kind of finding my place at the school. And also I had several mentors, right? So these are the Prince Hall Masons. My Interact club advisor was Mr. Leonard, who has passed away since. But this was us feeding homeless on Thanksgiving.
I'm trying to identify which picture is yours.
Who's me?
Yeah.
The little scrawny one.
Oh, to the right, kind of
Yeah.
out the door, sorry.
That's
You on this young lady?
Calamus, yeah,
Calamus?
Calamus Maduro. Yeah, that's a Heather Dockery.
Yeah.
Is also a show personality. Reese Joseph, his dad was one of our teachers. Pata. I mean, just really cool kids. I grew up. The transition to All Saints was difficult, but it was necessary. For me, I was a kid that was always in trouble because I can't sit still. So it worked out. And then I moved from All Saints to college at Wesleyan University in Connecticut. So freshman year, I lived with, the general population in a dorm. And then sophomore year, I moved to International House. So college was an interesting time for me, being from the Caribbean and being specifically from the Virgin Islands, because we have an interesting identity, right? Like, we're not quite Black Americans, but then we're not Jamaicans. And so there's like this searching for identity and place that I experienced, right? That I experienced in college, where it was like, you know what, I actually relate to the international kids the most. I feel like an international student. So I lived in International House. I was the house manager at International House. I studied abroad my sophomore year in Mexico, and then my senior year I studied abroad in Morocco. Graduated college, I studied government. I was a government major. I changed majors 3 times, but in the end I ended up being a government major. moved back home, ran for Miss US Virgin Islands. This was a dream my mom always had for me.
I have not seen that picture.
Miss USVI, huh?
I have not seen that
You
picture.
haven't seen? I have a whole lot of pictures. I have so many pictures.
Was that Tanya?
That was Tanya. That was Tanya. Yeah. This was back in 2004. So 2005, I was Miss US Virgin Islands Universe. I went abroad to Thailand to represent the Virgin Islands. I was there for 3 weeks, a 3-week competition. And came back with the Miss Congeniality Award. And I would say about Miss Congeniality, it's back to that challenge I had in college of like, I'm Caribbean and I'm also American, but I'm also like, I could speak Spanish and hang out with Spanish speaking women. And so it was interesting to kind of be, I think we from the Virgin Islands are like just citizens of the world, right? We could get along with anybody. We can almost morph to anybody, and I would say that's part of why I ended up becoming Miss Congeniality, because I also wasn't taking the pageant super seriously. Like, people were like elbowing each other out of the way to be in photos, and I just was like, I'm gonna teach y'all how to chicken fight, right? You know, like, we just had fun. I just had a good time. So I like to have fun. That's really important to me. That's one of my core values. And yeah, being a Virgin Islander and being a part of this VI community is really important to me, which will bring me to cocktails and conversations in a moment. But I'll tell you a little bit about my professional career. So in 2008, I moved from the Virgin Islands back to DC. So I graduated college, came home, worked for Zion Academy, actually taught a combined class of 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students at Zion. And then I got a job at Diamonds International. Then I worked for Jules. My Jules job was positioned over in Tortola, so I lived in Tortola for a year, had a work visa. And then I left Island for several different reasons and moved to the DC area. And there I just really pushed to focus on my career. I was involved in the performing arts, so that's me in a play called Go Dog Go at a children's theater. So somersaulting, cartwheeling on stage, singing songs, doing children's theater, but then also I got a full-time job at University of Maryland in 2012, and working in a marketing department. It was a step back in my career title-wise, but I used the time to also get a master's degree. So I specifically knew I wanted to get a master's. I couldn't afford it, so I found a job at a university so that they would pay for my tuition. And over time, I ended up at the Smith School of Business at University of Maryland, where I ended up teaching business communication. So before moving back home, just last year, I just moved back home, I was teaching business communication in the MBA program, an executive MBA program at the Smith School of Business at University of Maryland. So what I do now is work with teams, one of the slides is teams move their work forward. So most of my clients right now are stateside. I'm leaving on Friday to go to California to work with a national nonprofit, to work with their executive leadership team. We're doing a 2-day retreat. We're gonna do some personality assessments, and I'm gonna help them kind of work together better. So I work with teams to help them move their work forward. I'm a facilitator and a coach, an executive coach. I've been doing a little bit of that work here. I've had the privilege of working with a couple of government departments, and just getting an understanding of what the leadership needs are here and what the challenges are that our leaders are facing. Which brings me to cocktails and conversations, so I'll stop sharing here. Cocktails and Conversations was an opportunity that I sought out, but it also to an extent came to me, and Nyla Colwood. And they've been doing Cocktails and Conversations for years, I think now, over a year at least. And so I'll read to you about VI Crawl. It's a 501c3 dedicated to telling Virgin Islands stories through film, cultural events, and digital media. At the heart of our work is the VI Renaissance, a cultural and creative awakening driven by Virgin Islanders to tell their stories, shaping their own industries and redefining what it means to thrive here. And I love the language of thriving. My vision is a thriving and connected Virgin Islands. Like moving beyond surviving and really just like that mouth open laughter of like enjoying our lives, right? That's the Virgin Islands I see in my vision of what we can be. And creative Cocktails and Conversations came to me as, this is an event that we do, and we need a moderator, a facilitator, and a producer. My husband is an events producer. He's done White House events. The big flyover that Trump did with all those big planes, he was in the Pentagon coordinating all those planes. He worked on March for Our Lives. He does big corporate events, mostly stateside, but really internationally, actually. And so for us, events are a light lift. So we partnered with Killarney and Nyla and said, hey, what's your vision? What has this looked like in the past? And what are you looking for it to be? And the idea behind Cocktails and Conversations is it's spotlighting Virgin Islanders who are doing awesome things. So giving them a platform, but then also bringing people together to like deepen the conversation around a specific issue. So the first one that I did was in June, and I focused it on entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurs. And my motivation for that one was, y'all remember Senator Nellie Riley posted like, Virgin Islanders come back home. And the amount of comments that were just like, ain't get no opportunity there. And I'm like, how I don't have any opportunity when some random person started a pirate tour company and now owns a building, and some other random person started a catering company and is at all the villas, and this place breathes opportunity to me. When I look around the VI, all I see is opportunity, and my mind is racing with ideas about stuff that can be done. So I brought together 3 entrepreneurs and just was like, tell us what you see as opportunities in the Virgin Islands. You know, the first question I asked them was, what are the pots that you have your hands in? And then the last question to wrap the conversation was, what is a vision that you have for the Virgin Islands that others might not see yet? And John Wheatley was on the panel, who lives in Atlanta but is coming back home more often. Brigitte Berry is on the panel. She went to All Saints with me, but I've really admired her and watched her from abroad in her online presence and the way that she advocates for Virgin Islanders by being very vocal online. And then the third person was Amber Alexander. So she's interesting to me because, yeah, so she's interesting to me because she has her own boutique, and then she also like does catering. She ships cars down here. Like, she does a lot, right? And she has a full-time job, 9 to 5. So it's like, I don't know how people say there's no opportunities here when there's clearly lots of gaps to be filled. So how can we reframe our minds from thinking about the deficits as problems and see them as opportunities? That was the focus of that conversation. And then the last one, which we did last month, July, just last week, I invited 2 people from the hospitality industry. So Chef Ashley Allen, who has lived stateside and done corporate work, corporate training. Corey Baker, who owns Buddha,
Barefoot Buddha.
Barefoot Buddha. She owns Barefoot Buddha, and which is now in the airport. So she owns Buddha on the Fly, which was a project that took them 3 years to, she bid for it. Now she's running concessions in the airport with the same Buddha philosophy, right, around fresh ingredients and locally sourced and that sort of thing. And then Tricia Walters, who is the senior food and beverage manager at the Ritz-Carlton. And she's been there for 13 years. And I think she's interesting because there's also a narrative of like, oh, they don't only get them jobs to stateside-ers, or oh, only white people are in those positions. But she's local. All her managers are local. And we talked about really hiring, training, recruiting, and retaining great talent in the Virgin Islands. And my inspiration for that panel was also a gripe, right? This gripe that nobody wants to work. That's another thing I hear people say. I hear friends who are business owners tell me they can't find staff because people don't want to work. I want to work. I've always worked, right? I showed you pictures. I've always worked, and I told you I worked full time while going to college, and I had a part-time job in the evening at Ann Taylor, stateside. So I know us to be people that work and hustle, and so I don't understand this gripe that people don't want to work. So that was kind of my motivation behind that panel. Tanya invited me, and I came because I would like to know what you all would want to see in future Cocktails and Conversations. So the last 2 were motivated by me saying, I hear a gripe that I don't think is true, and I want to challenge that and have a deeper conversation about the truth. And I have lots of potential topics and potential speakers. This is how my mind works. But I have industries, right? So historians, agriculture, educators, media, technology, photography, beauty, culture bearers, musicians. But really, literally, this is how my mind works. So one idea I have is bringing Annette Hill Bowering, who had a really beautiful carnival troupe this year on the road. Having her, the jesters, the Indians, juxtaposed against, right, like some of these newer carnival troops that kind of have the skimpy outfits. and then can we talk about that, right? Can we talk about carnival as a group of people working towards a goal, building an ensemble? I was in John McCleverty's traditional Mukujumbis growing up, and so to me carnival is this collective effort at a thing versus you spend $2,000. Along the same lines, I'm like, what if we bring in somebody from Rising Stars, somebody from the Majorettes, a Mukujumbi, Willard John, Johnny McCleverty, Israel, somebody else, to talk about preserving our culture and these pieces that are critical to our culture. So y'all know the same people I know, y'all know people I don't know. And so I'd be curious to hear from you while I was invited to like talk about cocktails and conversations. I'd be interested in what are the conversations that we're not having, and or that we are having, or we're having them at a shallow level, or we're having them and like
We could put it on a larger
sticking
scale.
to the stereotypes. We're not going deeper, right? We're not really actually. So like this recent one with the food industry folks, how do you train people, right? How do you retain local talent? It's not just about money. How is it that you have staff for 20 years, right? How is it that you have staff that started washing dishes and now they're managers? How did you nurture them? How did you coach them, right? Because I don't believe people don't want to work. We have to work. As much as maybe we want to sit on the beach all day. But yeah, that would be my question to you is like, I saw a post that has gone a little bit viral by a former music teacher, Mr. Rogers, saying that he was kind of treated poorly by the education department. I think that could be an interesting conversation. How do we teach music education outside of the Department of Education, right? Because if something is broken and we don't have the power to fix it, how can we fix it on our own accord but in a different medium? So that's my little bit about cocktails and conversations. That's my question to you. What conversations do you think Virgin Islanders need to be having? What is some history that's being lost, some traditions that are being lost? What are some stereotypes or long-lasting beliefs that are holding us back? Because that's the other point. I think the point of the conversations is to show us that another way is possible. Another way is possible.
I think you make a lot of great points, a lot of great topics. I like have my brain like, ooh.
I tell you, this is how my day-to-day looks.
You know, and I come from a banking background, so you know, there's always the stereotype of banks aren't lending. Banks are only lending to people that are coming from away. We're losing all of our property, and I think there needs to be a deeper dive as how we as a community can preserve the things that we have. You see a lot of buildings being sold on Main Street in historical districts that are income producing, that have revenues to support financing, but you don't see locals applying. You don't see locals coming forward and saying, hey, how can I own a piece of this? But there comes a stereotype, oh, they're not gonna lend to me. So it's like, how do we get out of that mindset to have a community that wants to own a building and say that, okay, I can do this or I can accomplish this.
And the limiting belief is just already in your way, so we're not even like making the step in the first place. I see something that's happening at Wet Willie's. I remember I saw the
They
for
just
sale
sold
sign.
it. They sold it.
Yeah, I saw the for sale sign, and when I
To a
just
local?
drove by, I saw
I can
A
neither
dumpster.
confirm or deny.
yeah,
Okay.
I saw a dumpster out there. Wet Willie's was the spot.
Yeah, a lot of us hung out there. You know, and when you talk to like EDA, a lot of these districts are, the governor has just rezoned. So for local banks, it's beneficial to local banks to lend.
Economic opportunity
to
zones.
these zones, yep, for us to lend in those areas. But you wanna see more locals that are come together and do things. You don't see that.
So is it true that we just don't have the money? Like, cause I feel like that's the barrier. It's like we just don't have the capital. So it's people who have backing and who have capital that are.
So how do we get together to get that capital? You know, how do we get to that stepping stone? And capital could be one, but sometimes it's how we prepare as well. And I work with, I manage U.S. Virgin Islands. So I see packages from St. Croix, I see packages from St. Thomas. And I will be very honest to say that sometimes when I see a package from St. Croix, it's more complete and thorough than when I see one from someone in St. Thomas. But when you look on St. Croix, you see more small businesses flourishing and developing than you do in St. Thomas.
And a package is
Like
loan
a loan
application.
loan application packages, yeah.
Is it just ignorance? Like people just don't know how to do it?
Sometimes it could be ignorance, but we have tools that don't be utilized as well.
Yeah.
So you have like free tools, not even tools that you have to pay for. You have the small business development. They're there to help guide you through that process. Are we accessing these, resources? And if we're not, why are we not accessing the free resources? Because they're federally funded programs, so you don't have to pay for it.
So our next conversation are the faces of who's doing it, right? Like whatever the industry is. I was even thinking about trades, having a plumber come, someone that lays tile, having an electrician come, like having contractors come. Because like while this should be focused on they talk about the creative economy. The creative economy is everything. We're all creatives in everything that we do. You gotta get creative sometimes with tax filing, right?
Oh, you're hitting below the belt on that one.
But yeah, I think the real estate could be an interesting panel. To me, as a moderator, it's a little intimidating to me. So I almost wonder if we could like really even prior to doing the panel, and I did this with the last two panels. I met the panels the week before. We did like a dry run, but I wonder if it's really about education. If we lay out on the wall step to step what all the steps in the process are, what is needed from people, what whether it's the capital and the loan application process, or it's the how do you even look at a house? How do you how do you look at property? Like I remember going with a realtor and looking at some property, and I was just like, I just see bush. Like I didn't have the creative mindset to say, oh, we would level this and we would do that, or we would move, this would face this direction and we could build here and there. So how do you look at land as an investment? What are you looking for? What are you thinking about?
And that is education.
Yeah, I wonder if it's some education and then some collective brainstorming around like.
On the whole, I've always thought that there should be a class in school called life.
Correct.
Yeah, my sister talks about life skills. Yeah.
Actually, that's another topic that I was just going to suggest.
Life skills.
Credit the stuff that you need to know, but you don't learn. You have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
It should be a class in school to cover this debate.
Well, could there be a cocktails and conversation regarding education in general? Because a lot of the education that we're getting in public, the curriculum, when I look at it, my sons, I'm like, they're not gonna need this. I love math. I had my calculus, but yeah, but they're not. To piggyback on your life class. I mean, where's the social classes where, and the crowds that I go into as far as the networking? I can tell you if I go to East End and there's groups that I can network with, and it's like people get it. It's like I'm going to talk about business, or we're having fun, but we talk about business at the same time. But then you can go Taffas, for example. They network before they actually have like the big party at the end, and people come from Main Street all over and they're networking. When you go to the other place that was doing their first Friday, it was more of a club setting. It was upstairs. I forgot the name of the place, but there was no business networking component to it. You just came to drink your alcohol and grind up, and then that was it. And that's not what I came there for. I like the idea of if you're gonna have fun, you be able to do it with a purpose and make it productive.
That's what Rotary used to be.
Yeah, let me see if I could turn you up. Go ahead.
Yeah. I appreciate the conversation and all, the conversation around, locals becoming more involved. However, I think we need to bring it to the level where we can reach them from the elementary level. Because I find that, people are so entitled. When you look at most of our public schools, you have them, for the most part, coming from some sort of, governmental assistance, whether they're living in the project Section 8 or whatever. Not that anything is wrong. And when you have to look at each of those youngsters coming up, they have been through generations, their mother, their grandmother, their great-grandmother. So how do we reach those type of individuals to show them the importance of being able to aspire for more? I always look and admire Petrus and what he has accomplished coming out of Paul and Pearson Gardens project. There's a lot of people out there who feel, well, we would never be able to get to this because a lot of us who may have grown up in the projects or on some sort of public assistance is afraid to come out and speak. When we go out, okay, I'm not aiming for this. I don't know what this is. I know how to sit on the street corner. And I truly believe that we need to take it, down to that level and build it up, and not just reaching those of us who may fall probably in the middle tier, but to reach down a little bit lower and pull our brothers and sisters up from that level. Look what is happening in St. John. They're losing everything. So how do we get to that point? Not just looking at those of us who have the opportunity to travel or to go to school or have the desire to go to school, because a lot of them in there have that desire. Look at our school system as it is. What is there to inspire our children to aim higher? Who is there? As Tricia just pointed out, President Tricia just pointed out with the, because I read it on social media as well, on Facebook, with a young musician who brought back so much and is willing, and look at how he was treated. What is the reason for it? My first thought was, hey, you have someone out there who said he come to take over their job. Should it be that, or should it be about us just working together to build each other up and ensure that our youngsters are getting the best that education has to offer with what little to no resources that we have? Can we look at it from that standpoint?
She's a past president, right? Past president?
Oh,
Rotary, I actually want to jump in. I think,
yes.
yeah, past president, I'm actually on the same page as you. And I think that you're 150% right, that there is an audience that we need to be focused on talking to. Here's where I will make a move to challenge your point, is I don't think that we as a community collectively can address the issues of reaching those people who don't have the opportunities the rest of us do if we don't get it together. So, I think that the situation with Mr. Rogers is a prime example in that he came back to give back to our youth, and the leadership in the Department of Education failed him and failed the kids. And I genuinely believe this, and those of you who are at my installation know that I said the VI has a leadership problem. And I'm not even talking about politics, right? Unfortunately, there's too much politics in all of the way our government is run, all the government departments. But what I'm saying is, we as leaders have to be better leaders and be better leaders collectively and together before we could say, okay, what are some of the social ills that we need to address? Whether it's gun violence or it's lack of, the school system, the public school system, or giving opportunities to those in need. Like, I think that first our leadership needs inspiration because we aren't leading. And I see this in the contracts that I've been able to get with leaders in different departments, like, oh, we don't do employee of the year anymore because people used to complain. What? What? It's your job to do employee of the year. What do you mean you don't do it anymore because people complain? People gonna complain. So So now
But they're
you,
complaining because it's a favoritism and
Yep.
not a merit.
Yep.
true, and what I'm sharing though is that that's leadership. Is okay, then let's fix the process.
Effective
let's fix the
leadership.
system. Let's take the feedback. Let's do it in a more fair way. Let's create a panel. Let's open it to all employees voting. Whatever the solution is. But your job as leaders is to do problem solving, not to put up your hands and say, well, they're gonna be vexed anyway, so me gonna do nothing strokes. Right? And so that's what I see is like across all of these industries that I've listed, music, film, photography, real estate, how do we nurture the leaders in these industries to say like, okay, as a real estate professional, you gain X amount of calls, let's set up the education that needs to be set up for people. Or let's pre-fill out the qualifications in whatever way, or let's hire a set of coaches or let's raise the money to, bring together professionals to help people fill out the application. I don't know what the solution is, right? But I think we have to do some collective problem solving of those of us who did have the opportunities to go away and get educated and see what's being done in other communities. So Baltimore, for example, I've seen a post several times about how a Baltimore leader implemented more after school programming and crime was reduced by several percentages because of the programming that he implemented. Like, the Virgin Islands is unique in some ways, but the solutions to the problems are out there. But we have to be inspired and hopeful that we can implement the solutions.
I have another suggestion for you.
Yeah, sure.
For the and actually it was posed on social media after Cal White's they had his indictment. Yeah. And the question was, when it comes to the leadership, why are our own people selling us out? And like the person that mentioned this didn't give any specific names or references, but it was right after the situation. And is it that people in these leadership roles are don't have the education, or is it also that they're so comfortable in our community with lying? Does that relate to like their own personal habits of being able to have infidelity in their own personal relationships, so that it is so common to be able to self-serve and take whatever you want for yourself, that it's okay? So maybe you saw your father do it, maybe you saw your mother do it, and this is a pattern of behavior that has become so common in the Virgin Islands. I mean, common that most people, if you say, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's right. It is what it is. He's gonna do this or she's gonna do that. That's the way it is. What do we need to do to be able to shift that behavior to say, hey, I don't accept that standard. I don't think that this is right, that, yeah, okay, you can choose to live this way, but should you be in a leadership position if you're going to now not honor a boundary? And I mean, I know it could be crossing a fine line because we're all human and we all make mistakes, but if you cannot have integrity in your own life, how can we expect you to have integrity when you're dealing with money, when you're being put in charge of so many resources that can affect a community as a whole? And so it's just like that conversation. So because this happened, I mean, I've been here in St. Thomas 22 years ago, and when I got here, there were other senators that got in trouble for whatever arrangements they had made within the government and kickbacks or whatever, and other government employees. So how do we keep that conversation going so that people know this is not acceptable?
Okay.
Yeah,
we're not mad enough. Like the collective rage isn't bouncing off the walls or resonating. It's like, that's just another thing.
Yeah.
There's a really phenomenal book called The Power of Moments by the Heath brothers, Dan and Chip Heath. They write a lot of sort of like leadership, pop culture type of books. But this book is really phenomenal. For any of you who work in service, it's good too. But they talk about ethics from the perspective of training, right? And it's not training people on what's right or wrong. We all already know what's right or wrong. People know what's right or wrong. It's a question of putting people in the scenario and having them practice doing the right thing. And they talk about the civil rights movement and you know, the people who we know as the leaders of the civil rights movement rehearsed. They had people spit in their faces. They had people point fire hoses at them. They practiced nonviolent resistance. It's not that Rosa Parks just showed up and decided to not get off on the bus. It was all practice. And so I think that there's a part around the ethics piece that's education and training. So it's like, you know what's right, but let me give you an example. Okay, now what would you say in this scenario? What would you do in this scenario? And making people do it and practice it, because it becomes like this gray area and slippery slope.
And then it's who would implement that? Where does that start?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So that's what I'm saying, the
Can you
conversation.
read the book,
The Power of Moments by Dan and Chip Heath, the Heath brothers. It's really beautiful. If you like coordinate and run events and stuff too, and it's also just good in terms of thinking about your family and the moments that you share with the people that matter to you. It's a really beautiful book. And Bernice, I want to also build on where you started and say, and take my vision as I have it as an individual. One of my ideas is, I see myself creating and developing a speakers bureau here in the Virgin Islands. So through cocktails and conversations, people come, I've moderated, I've seen them speak, I know their life stories, and then I could partner with Department of Education and then say, okay, these are some speakers that we want to get into the schools, speaking to young people, and not just speaking at them. My degree is in instructional design, so partnering with them to say, here's how what this person has done in their life may build on your curriculum, right? Like, I don't know if y'all know Danton Duran for the Medicine Shop. I love this guy. I love his story, right? This man worked full-time at TSA while getting his master's degree. I mean, people don't know sometimes the sacrifices that people make and how hard they work in order to reach where they have gotten. And I do think, like, again, Bernice, I think you and I are on the same page. I do think that what we need to do is get some of these really compelling stories in front of people so that they can see what's possible. Because I don't think that our young people know what's possible. And I think that that's part of why they're hopeless, is we see the Kardashians becoming millionaires with Instagram. And so people think they could just make a ton of money on social media by posting on TikTok, you know?
Without having.
But some of us here, you know, I think knowing that our stories matter and that our stories could be the thing that pushes somebody to make a sacrifice or take a risk that they might not have taken otherwise. I think that that's the goal with these cocktails and conversations. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. That was very
and
enlightening.
I'm open to continuing to talk to anybody. I mean, I heard you say at one point, this is what Rotary used to be. And, you know, I remember I did the Vagina Monologues in 2005. I did it twice here. I did Seed Spot, an entrepreneurship boot camp, where people came and brought their ideas and we taught them how to start a business. And I spoke about it at Rotary. Like, Rotary to me was the place where you have an idea and you take it there and you talk to the influencers on island. They're gonna either connect you to people or they're gonna connect you to resources. And, you know, I don't think Rotary has to be what it was, but I think that we can really be thinking about the place that Rotary plays in this VI renaissance of sorts that these two visionaries for the VI crawl have in mind. So thank you all for your time.
Awesome. Thank you.
we said the same thing every day over and over. We have a lot of complaints, yes, there are many. But no one is coming up with ideas, with suggestions, or taking any sort of action. We don't have to take everything one time, just take one at a time. And then see what resolutions we could bring about to that one ill that we have going on. There is so much in our schools. When you have to go in there, I learned just recently, last week, a couple of people was calling me, where are you? Are you back on the island? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. What's up? They say they had to rush you to the hospital. I say, what? But what happened is there's a young lady who attend my church and have the same first name as I do and work in one of the government offices. And there was no AC.
There are several steps to action. I want to read you a quote. Van Gogh says, I dream my painting and then I paint my dream. And I do think that this particular platform, Cocktails and Conversations, provides value because it is a place potentially for inspiration. And so I think inspiration is one piece, and another piece that I think is necessary for action is relationship building. Because if we don't know each other, if we don't care about each other, if we don't understand how people work, what they need, what pisses them off, we can't take action and we can't work together. So I empathize with the frustration around what's next and what is the follow-up and what is the action. And I also want to offer that dreaming is productive. Like rest is productive. You know, like it's great we have to rest. And so I appreciate the frustration, and I just have to say too that I think there's value sometimes in bringing people together, not necessarily to put boots on the ground and get a thing done.